So I'm Janice Harris. I'm the Canadian Regional Director, and I am moderating the afternoon sessions in this room. So Debra Prinzing is a Seattle-based writer and speaker and a leading advocate for American-grown flowers and Canadian. Good for that too. Through her many slow flower branded projects, she has convened a national conversation that stimulates consumers and professionals alike to make conscious decisions about their floral purchases. Debra is a producer of slowflowers.com, and each Wednesday approximately 2,500 listeners tune in to Debra's Slow Flower podcast, available at her website or on iTunes and other podcast services. And Debra is the 2016 inductee for the Garden Writers Association Hall of Fame and author of 10 books, including Slow Flowers and the 50 Mile Bouquet. And Debra joined the ASCFG 10 years ago.
Sorry, I'm going under my shirt. Thanks, Janice, so much. I brought some party favors, and Janice is going to pass them out. I have buttons that say, I pledge allegiance to American-grown flowers, or to American flowers, I think. But I also have Canadian ones. How many Canadians are in the room? Woo! I already gave you one. Oh. You want to, yeah, you want to like Chilean one too, don't you? Well, okay, how many had time to wolf down lunch? And then, yeah, me too. So now we have protein, we can get through the afternoon. I am so, first of all, I'm Debra Prinzing, as Janice announced. So happy to be here. I remember my very first ASCFG conference in 2010 in Oklahoma. Yeah, were you there? I was like a deer in headlights. I'm like, well, I want to write about flower farming. I better go to one of these conferences. And it was pretty amazing, although I believe it was in winter, well, November. And we did see some amazing months. I still have visual impact of that. So I like to say I'm an embedded journalist in the cut flower and floral design world. I think that's a lot happier than the other types of embedded journalists that are in the world. I'm focusing on positive things. And every year for the last 4 years, I've produced a forecast, an industry forecast for the slow flowers point of view. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that, but really it's everyone in this room. It's people who care about flower sourcing from the farming side and who are developing a vibrant domestic and local and seasonal market for their flowers. And the customers, which are the floral designers, the progressive floral designers who are asking questions about where their flowers come from. And thank God there's more and more of them every day. So I don't like to use the word trend. I think trend implies that it's a short-term flash in the pan, maybe something that will is a fad that won't last very long. And so I like to use the word industry forecast, which is my background as a business writer. But I did also learn from a marketing person that I interviewed on my very first podcast, which Joan Thorndike was also on, that we don't use the word trend, we use the word cultural shift. So we're in the middle of a cultural shift. Sounds a lot more important, I think. So I decided to talk a little bit about what I'm seeing coming up. And as you see in the handout, the methodology for this is 100% whatever Debra wants to say. There's no like science-based thing here. It's very, very much based on first-person interviews, farm visits. She's passing them around. Yeah. I'm sorry, we didn't have the handouts earlier because they were stuck on the bus too. But you'll get them soon. So anyway, I interview people, I visit farms, I visit floral studios, I report for Florist Review magazine. I attend major industry events on the farming and floral side. And I am very plugged into consumer research in the gardening and lifestyle categories. So all of these things kind of influence what I learn and what I see in the over the course of a year, and what bubbles up to the top and it gets on my consciousness is what I think we all should be looking for. Many of you will see that some of these insights are already happening in your market or with you, and if so, then consider yourself leading edge. and I want to hear about your stories, so be sure to let me know. As I said, this sort of, I come up with this once a year, there's sort of a theme. In the handout I said that the 2019 sort of overarching theme is defining the new normal, which reflects the shift taking place with local flowers moving from the fringe to the mainstream. I love this slide that I actually grabbed from the people at Keukenhof who promote Dutch flowers. They used it for their promotion this year, which is a big like Disneyland of tulips in Holland in the spring. And I decided that this is really what we all want for our consumers, to be reconnected with nature. And perhaps that means even living in the garden, although I'm sure a lot of you would like to have a little pod like this on your flower farm to live in. Oh, I mentioned the methodology. Sorry, I got a little off cycle here. And I'm just going to jump right in. So the 10 insights, I'm basically going to tell you what I see as the prevailing idea and like what it's replacing in the marketplace. So the first one I think will resonate with everybody who is selling to the public, and that is experiences, not conveniences. The convenience is what's happening at the supermarket level, and not to take away from supermarkets, because now 50% of flowers sold in the US are sold at the grocery or mass market level. So, you know, we can't fight that. We've got to join in, and I know there's a lot of people here who are selling at the grocery market. So they're the special ones because they're trying to create an experiential bouquet that tells a story, that uses branding and perhaps uses flowers that grocery store customers have never seen before. But some of the things that are happening with the way we engage with floral consumers is shifting more to experiences, which I believe creates a longer lasting relationship with customers. So we'll go through some of those. You see on the bullet points, I have events, workshops, and tours. So all kinds of fun things are happening on the farm these days. I just left Pepper Harrow Farm in Iowa last month, where yoga on the farm is a very big deal. And really, flowers aren't sold during yoga on the farm when Jennifer and Adam O'Neill are hosting this epic event that has like, I saw the stage, like they have bands now performing. But it's a way to connect people in their community with the fact that there's a flower farm right there outside of Des Moines, Iowa. We just had a fabulous tour since Chet and Christy are here, I'm going to pick on them, at the Fresh Herb Company outside of Boulder, and for the Denver Botanical Garden. Over, I don't know, I think 40 or 50 people came for a tour led by Chet to learn about floral agriculture. And then we had this amazing catered luncheon under the cottonwood trees. And that was more popular than my boring in-studio talk at the Botanic Garden. People don't want to come sit and listen to a talking head. They want to get out and be on a farm. I didn't take it too personally, Chet. Of course, workshops are more and more experiential in getting people to connect with your flowers. This is a photo from a workshop that was hosted by M&M Plants, and Maggie's here, maybe not in the room, but she's here at the conference. This is her greenhouse. Maggie plus M&M Plants plus 3 other farms came together with a florist and an event planner to create a DIY flower crown workshop. There was a band, there was bubbly, there was catered food. People paid $45 to come learn how to make a flower crown and left committed to local flowers. And tours, we talked about tours that I just mentioned at the Fresh Herb Company. This is something that Jello Mold Farm is doing up in Washington State. They sell to 2 major grocery chains through the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market. And you can be darn sure when the floral buyer from Town and Country Markets, which is one of the biggest grocery buyers at the Seattle Growers Market, when she says, hey, can I bring all my floral managers on to come visit your farm and learn about local farming? You can be darn sure that Diane and Dennis are saying yes, and making sure that there's all kinds of fun things to do while people are there, including make their own bouquets. So some of those things don't correlate to a direct money in the till, but they are definitely branding, and they, I believe, will eventually, you'll see a payoff for that. Okay, so that was experiences, not conveniences. The next is artisan, not mass production. We're seeing this in all consumer categories. this value-added perception versus price sensitivity commodity. And I've been harping away at commodity versus couture ever since I started understanding what was happening in our world, and that you are growing a couture product, not a commodity product. But when you can bring in a fashion thread, a design thread, and a handcrafted thread to what you're doing, you are putting yourself on par with the fine artists in your community. And I think that that is exciting and a new way to reposition yourself. One of them, I am a frustrated ex-home ec student, and I did like to sew back in the day, so now I'm reliving that by sponsoring floral fashions to celebrate American Flowers Week. This is one that was designed by Hedda Borstrom of Full Bloom Farm with Kate Rose Dahlias at Aztec Dahlias, which is a farm. They're two. One's a farmer florist and one's a farmer, and they're in Sonoma. They're in the same tribe as Lenny Larkin, and they created this amazing dress that we then published and used in promotions to help elevate flowers into a fashion sense. There was nothing more compelling than these two fashion covers that came out this month, which I think we all can take credit for influencing the exciting use of flowers in fashion. The Vogue US had Beyonce, Vogue, British Vogue had Rihanna, and they both had flowers on their heads, and I love that. And then in design, this is definitely being influenced by a couple florists who are doing a ton of beautiful wearable jewelry. One is Francoise Weeks out of Portland, and one is Susan McCleary. Susan is from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and she works closely with a lot of Michigan growers. They're both teaching very intricate jewelry making, wearable headpiece, and wearable shoes, wearable bags, anything as a fashion accessory, mostly with succulents. And this is one of the necklaces I made at Sue's workshop. I don't want to represent that it's hers because hers would be like 10x better. But just this idea of our flowers are pieces of jewelry, they're accessories. Handcrafted, I'm very inspired by people taking something commonplace and kind of reimagining it as a handcrafted art item. These are wreaths designed by Carly Jenkins of Killing Frost Farm. Carly is in Missoula, Montana, where she has a very short growing season for cut flowers. She relies heavily on foraging. She has permits from the State Department of Natural Resources and state forest land to forage, and has built that into part of her product mix. These are her wreaths. These are not your everyday Christmas wreaths. These are freaking amazing. And they're inspired by the Game of Thrones, which apparently is a thing. I don't know. And I wrote a story about this for slowflowersjournal.com, and it got picked up by some bloggers in Europe, and who knows where these inspiring wreaths went after that. But Carly's naming these wreaths. She's calling it like a work of art. Everyone has its own title. And they're really special, and I love the shape. So that's a real handcrafted way to upscale something that is ordinary, like your generic $12 cedar wreath. And then I know this word is like so tedious and overworked, curated. Will someone please come up with a new word for curated? Does anyone have one? I know, it's sort of like these buzzwords that we all get stuck in. But I like seeing curated flower collections. And the reason I put this slide in here is that last year, Carly Cavalier of Cairn Farm, she's in Washington State, gave me a bunch of mumps because she couldn't sell them. And I was so frustrated. I'm like, let's do something. Let's do a big post about this and photograph them. And I was so intrigued by this color ombre idea, this idea of you're not just growing one of something, growing a very wide selection of a particular variety and presenting it as a collection. So it's just something that's caught my eye as a way. We see that in fashion. We see it especially in this sort of, each season has its own line of something. There's a florist in Scottsdale, Arizona who actually presents a collection on her website of floral arrangements every season and photographs them like a fashion shoot. It's so that her clients have something to look at. Most of her clients are like corporate event planners who are coming to Arizona for golf tournaments, and they just want to look at a website and choose something. And so she's giving this a collection idea, and people, I think, get it. Okay, number 3, I cannot take a credit for this phrase. This phrase was introduced by Thomas Debra, and Thomas is a European, Belgian-based floral educator. He was speaking at the American Institute of Floral Designers a couple months ago, and he said, we need to create floral expressions, not floral arrangements. And the difference is just a nuance, but the expression is something much more sort of emotional and visceral, whereas a arrangement is a product. And I just thought, you know, suspend disbelief here and let me just talk about the things that I see allowing us to create mood and create moments and celebrate sense of place with the way that our product is presented. One is uncommon ingredients. I actually, right now this year in Seattle, I'm calling it the Blueberry Factor. This is an arrangement actually designed by Ariella Shazar, who is like a rock star floral designer and actually a flower farmer. So I just pulled this off of her feed, but the idea of anything that creates an aha intrigue to our florists and to their customers is a big deal. And actually, Amy Brown is here, right? Amy, we were having this conversation at a workshop with, oh, there you are, I think I saw you, with that florist from HB Farms. This woman has come out of a blueberry farm, and she was telling us that the blueberry price per pound is so depressed in Washington State. She can make more money just going up and down the rows of her blueberry farm and cutting the fallen branches, not even trashing the plant, but just cutting the branches with either unripe or unripe, well, first of all, just the foliage, or the unripe fruit, or the flowers, and selling to the florists in Seattle. So kind of sucks for blueberry fans, but it's a win for florists. I was really wowed by those chestnuts that were in the design room this week. Who brought those? Oh my gosh, that would definitely go into the uncommon factor. The other idea of really, we all care so much about seasonality. So whenever we can show arrangements or show product that is in season, that's associated by everyone with the season, like in this case, autumn leaves. These are red maple leaves. They're being sold on the branch by Jellimal Farm in Seattle at the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market. That is, you know, kind of forgives maybe the fact that those are the last late cafe au laits that probably shattered the minute I took this photo. That's not really autumn, but I like to use the term the fifth season, which actually was given to me by the folks at Johnny Seeds when I was writing a story with them last year. This notion of where's that space between summer and fall. I think we're kind of in it right now. That special fifth season. Story and narrative also are very closely associated with place. Emily Calhoun is a farmer florist outside of Albuquerque. She has a distinctly New Mexico vibe to what she's doing. So her family actually farms cotton in southern New Mexico, so she brings cotton from them. She also has pecans that are on the property. You see there's a pecan, let me see if I can do that, like right here on the branch, which is awesome. And of course, everything looks southwest if you have a dead cattle head next to it, right? And then botanical curiosities. I think anytime that we, look, this is what foraging and gleaning is all about, right? Because our consumers aren't necessarily out in nature. I was teaching a workshop in Napa Valley or in Sonoma Valley with Dundee Butcher at Russian River Flower School, and she brought in these like things, and she pulled them out of the ditch by her house and just whooshed them into a circle and put a bird in the middle, and it was like, how much are you going to charge for that? You know, centerpieces at a dinner party, and I call those botanical curiosities. It kind of goes along with the blueberry, although it's very wild. Okay, number 4 is environmental, not synthetic. I think that the more we can show how plants literally grow, the more we have this appreciation for the value of what we are growing. Case in point, this was an installation done by Faye Zierer-Krause, florist in Arcata, California, at one of the Field to Vase dinners several years ago, and she created an amazing chandelier by using tulips on the bulb. This is not, other people have done this, so I'm not just saying she came up with this idea. I did particularly love the way she installed it because she hung branches of curly willow from the rafters of the greenhouse and then attached the dahlias, or excuse me, the tulips to that. Sorry, I've seen someone else do this with dahlias. I was a little concerned that there was dirt on the bulbs and that my dinner entree was underneath that dirt. But you know what? It was fine. People were so fascinated to see that that's what a real tulip plant looks like on the bulb. And I think anytime we can give people access to our process of plants at all stages, think about this as perhaps a new category for you. If you're already selling at a farmer's market and you're selling cut flowers, can you bring starts to sell as well? Because there's such a hunger for consumers. I come out of the gardening world. People are so hungry to have cutting gardens, but they maybe don't want to scratch the sweet pea seed and deal with all that. And soak it overnight. How many times have I soaked my sweet pea seeds and like a week later went, oh shit, they're still in the bowl. Oh no. It's just hard. And if you can shortcut that for a consumer and give them, sweet pea seeds or starts or any kind of summer annual start, I think there's a market for that. What really drove this home to me was last year at the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market. You guys all know what that is, right? Okay, so then I'm kind of like always there because I'm like a fly to honey. I love that place, and I came in one spring very early, like in March, and there were flats of sweet pea starts. And Diane and Dennis from Jello Mill Farm had they overproduced, and they couldn't use these starts. They're like, well, we'll just bring them down to the market, see if the florists want them. These things were devoured in one day, and people were so hungry. Like every florist wants to be a flower farmer, but she really only wants to have like 3 roses and a few sweet peas. This scratched that itch, and it was exciting. And I was like, there's an opportunity to help people jump into their own cutting garden. And of course, floral tourism is something I cited a couple years ago in my forecast. It's stronger than ever. I've just visited a ton of farms this summer, and every single flower farm was scheming for how they can build a barn for events on their farm. Raise your hand if you're in the same place, right? Okay, so people want to get on the farm. The next one I wanted, oh, Joan, you didn't know you were going to be in this photo. Unfiltered is another kind of component to this, showing how plants are grown. And I think this was a post that Joan and her daughter Isabella posted about the fires that were going on in Oregon. And this isn't the pretty on Instagram, this is the real. And I think it really engages people. I mean, there's 150 likes, there were tons of comments when that went up. And people, I'm sure you had a lot of compassion from just posting this.
We had some grocery stores that we sell to ask if they could post that photo.
Really?
To show their customers.
Okay, so Joan said that some of her grocery store customers wanted to repost the photo. Kind of to show the grit behind what it takes to get those flowers to market, right? Yeah, that's experience, not convenience, isn't it? Okay, number 5 is vertical, not silo or compartmentalized. This is not new. I was a business writer a long time before I escaped from the .com world and got into home and garden and then flower writing. And this vertical integration is sort of a phrase that you hear a lot in the business world, being your own source. And what are you spending money on? Can you figure out a way to stop paying someone else that money and produce it yourself? You're seeing that a lot with florists who are now growing flower farms. Is this like upsetting to you guys? I think it's cool because when florists decide to become flower farmers, they learn how hard it is, and they value what you're bringing to them. This is Mindy and Josh Staten. They own 2 little buds outside of Columbus, Ohio, and Mindy and her mother owned a retail flower shop for 13 years in their town, and she got married, and she and her husband bought a farm that was primarily like soybeans and corn and that sort of commodity crops, and so they had access to land. And so Mindy decided to take some classes, and I think she actually took a floret workshop and decided to start growing some of her own flowers. Now she's selling to herself. When I interviewed her, I asked her, why did you start doing this? You had a successful retail flower shop. And I was really impressed by her answer. She said, I couldn't satisfy my customers anymore. The wholesale flowers that I had access to were not the whimsical, twisted stems, beautiful heirloom colors and antique colors, and I had to change how I source flowers to keep these brides happy. So she decided to grow them herself. Getting into retail is something else I've been tracking for 2 years. More and more flower farmers are because okay, fine, let the florists become flower farmers, but why don't flower farmers get to be retailers too? Now, this is an option. This isn't for everybody, but there's some pretty cool models, and I've written about a lot of them. And if you go onto my website and search, farmer retail, or search the podcast archives, you'll find some of those. This is a wonderful field and florist women, Heidi Joint and Molly Colbelt. They're members of ASCFG. Unfortunately, they're not here this year. They have a farm in Southwest Michigan where they grow flowers for their design business. And as it turns out, they needed a new studio in Chicago, and there was a storefront attached to it. So they decided to open up 4 days a week, and now they have really exciting retail operation that I frankly am waiting to see if they're going to ever hit the point where they have to choose now, because their farm is so successful and their retail is so successful. They're selling their flowers, like these Lysianthus. They're also selling beautiful work by local artists, like this particular vase is from a ceramic artist in Chicago. Another way to sell to yourself is to cross over into another industry. And I was speaking with some people on the bus who are thinking about doing a gelato shop, I guess, with flower shop. I was like, okay, that's a new one. I've heard a lot about beer and flowers. These are some photos from a flower bar that is associated with Peninsula Tap Room, which is on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington. And April Limley is a grower. She has Kamama flowers. She does a little bit of kind of design work, but her partner owns a brew pub. And when the retail space next to the brew pub opened, they took the lease and knocked out the wall in between. And now April has all kinds of fun pop-up events like DIY workshops. And she also has pre-made arrangements there, so even the guys at the bar can sell the flowers after hours when someone might be in trouble and has to take flowers out. And then I really love seeing people branch out into other product lines. This is happening a lot with plant-based textile dyeing, and there's some people who are probably in ASCFG doing this. The idea of having a botanically based product for something that will complement your flowers. I'm seeing a lot of florists do this, and a couple years ago, at this first Slow Flower Summit, we actually had a plant-based textile dyeing workshop the day before to try to offer people a new skill. And some of those plant-based dyes are not things you have to grow yourself. It could be black beans, and you could be making that beautiful silver gray ribbon. This is an arrangement done by Katie Davis of Ponderosa and Time with some textiles that she had purchased from a designer in Portland. And botanical brand extension, I alluded to that a little bit. Of course, some of you know Gretel and Steve Adams of Sunny Meadows Flower Farm. Gretel has long had her winter cash flow coming from her soap business. Marigold and Mint is in Washington State in Seattle. It's a flower shop, actually, incidentally, that's part of a very hot restaurant in Pioneer Square called the London Plain. And they now, they grow their own flowers for the farm, but they also buy a lot of other people's flowers. And their original name, Marigold and Mint, has inspired a candle line. Okay, this is one that I really care about, and that's relational, non-transactional. You know, we all are dealing with price-sensitive shoppers. We all have that problem of not wanting to be, justify the prices that we charge. And I think when we can shift the interaction with consumers to relationships, it's one way that helps diffuse that price conversation and hopefully supports the inherent value of the flowers you're growing. This is one of my favorite Seth Godin quotes. I think it applies to all of us. People do not buy goods and services, they buy relations or relationships, stories, and magic. I'm a storyteller. I really care about helping people tell their stories. I feel like that's one of the key ways that you can differentiate yourself. When I teach writing workshops at flower farms, which yes, I do that, I'm working really hard to help people pluck those stories out of their deep psyche, the ones about their childhood memories and the ones about their experiences growing flowers and how transforming that is and how can that tell your story. So here's some successful examples, meaningful connections. I've talked a little bit about workshops already. Here's another fun thing that is connecting consumers with the value of the flowers they buy. Mary Kate Canane owns the local bouquet in Rhode Island, and she she's a floral designer, wedding and event designer. She doesn't really grow anything, but she has forged deep relationships with a number of flower farmers who she buys direct from, and this is the second year in a row she's created this Farmer Florist Design Workshop series. It's not for florists, it's for her customers. It's for the people who, the brides and their wedding parties, and it's for the family members of the bride, or it's for the garden club ladies to come have a tour of the farm, learn about growing a specific crop. She's done peonies, dahlias, and I think this year she has another one just on annuals, and take home a floral arrangement. And these are not cheap. They're like $275 a piece. She this year had this 3-part series, and I think did a discount for $750 if you bought all 3, and she sold out. So, and they're small, they're intimate, like 12 people. Anytime you can connect with the community, I think this is, again, where you're adding value. These are the folks with Low Country Flower Farms, this Low Country Flower Growers in the Charleston area. And this is for the second year in a row. They've done as fun, consumer-focused floral event during American Flowers Week. This year they had the Bloom Battle. They challenged 3 designers to do floral arrangements, and in front of just the public at their local farmers market, had 2 celebrity judges come in, and they garnered a lot of interest in local flowers. They really weren't even trying to sell flowers. They were just doing an event as outreach and education for their community. I think this authentic statement goes along with the unfiltered statement. I think there's been so many natural disasters affecting flower farms this year that people they care, and your consumers care. This is a screenshot of the Mountain Bell Flower Farm, which is in Durango, Colorado. They were pretty much wiped out with floods this summer, and they're associated with a farm called James Ranch, which is why that's on there. But I think this is not uncommon. Everybody, seems like every part of the country has had this natural disaster. And I personally witnessed this among ASCFG members helping each other when they've had a disaster. But your consumers want to, your customers and your business customers and your ultimate customer want to know about that too. So I think, we don't hide these things. We're transparent about them. Oh, I meant to bring copies of mine. Okay, so I brought copies of this article I wrote up there, up in my hotel room. I'll go grab them and put them at the registration table. I write for Florist Review magazine now. Thank goodness they made room for the conversation about the slow flowers movement and local flowers and floral designers sourcing from farmers and farmer florists. And we just did a big package for the October issue that relates to this item. And so I brought extra copies, and I'll bring them down after this. It's the houseplant craze, let's just be honest, all right? It's planted, not faux. It's not disconnected from nature. There's something going on with plants, houseplants, and I graduated from high school in 1977, so I'm here to say it's back. I'm getting interviewed by a lot of horticulture magazines about the slow flowers movement because growers on the greenhouse nursery side are interested in what's happening in our world. And so I love it that everyone from greenhouse management to the Wall Street Journal are asking me to comment on growing your own flowers. I feel like that's an exciting way to connect people with plants. I think plant geeks are everywhere, and whenever you can connect them with your story and what you're doing, I think it's exciting. This is an example, and this actually could have gone into collections too. Have you seen the Dahlia wall on Instagram? I know Amy has, because she's seen it in person. The Seattle Wholesale Growers Market for 4 years has produced this really nifty Dahlia Festival for their florist customers, and it involves this really time-consuming production of getting every farmer who's growing dahlias to bring in one of every variety. The staff, especially working with Alicia Schweedy of Flirty Florist, who's a blogger in town, create this wall. And it is sort of crazy. If you type in dahlia wall into social media, into Instagram, you'll see it. Thousands of posts about this because other people have, I don't want to say copy, but have emulated this full installation. And I think you should. I think everybody should put their own twist on it. So, to be specific about the interior plant craze, there has been almost every major daily newspaper in the country has written about this year. Written about the idea that millennials can't afford homes, so they're buying houseplants. Or they don't want to or they don't, we can say this about farmers too, right? Yeah. Or writers. Or they don't want to have children, so they are nurturing their plants. So this is the headline from the LA Times. They don't own homes, they don't have kids. Why millennials are plant addicts. This is one from Fast Company. This millennial dream home is designed around succulents. But the subtitle is even funnier. The house features a 2-story greenhouse, which will appeal to the growing number of young people who are eschewing children for houseplants. Yes. So, okay, so my message to you guys is grow some kind of houseplant. Figure out how to propagate something that you can sell to this crowd. Because, and moreover, my story that I have in the Florist Review is about florists who are committed to the Slow Flowers belief that they want to source locally from farmers. But they're in markets where maybe there's nothing available in the winter. They're pivoting to houseplants because they can get those locally from local greenhouses and kind of be true to their values and offer another kind of botanical product. So why not get in on growing this? In fact, there's one flower shop in Portland, it's called Solabee. They sell lots of local flowers, but they have quite a following for their houseplants. And the ladies who own it somehow came across a variegated philodendron, and that no one else had. And they bought a greenhouse, and they're teaching themselves how to propagate cuttings because they realize that they've got something that their market wants. It's just crazy. Oh, what happened?
Try advancing the slide.
Okay. Uh-oh. I'm just going to try to close that. Do you think that'll work?
Yeah.
No, that didn't work. And we lost the whole thing.
Do you want me to help?
Maybe, because I don't have my glasses on. Or I do now, but let's see. Here it is.
Are you finding it?
I don't know what happened, you guys. Did I hit something with my hand? All right, let's see. I've got to go to the Oh, wait. Let's see all that. Here we go. This is the slide you have to see. All right, and I think, all right, thank you, Linda, you're an angel. I just had to throw this in here for our friends Jimmy and Jonathan of Green Center, who are really playing up the farmer thing, including this beautiful photo shoot they did for a story I wrote about them. You know what? Get your pitchfork out and cover it with flowers. Why not, right? But, you know, these guys are micro-urban flower growers as well as floral designers. Okay, number 8, be transparent, not obscured or not mass. I don't know, this term isn't exactly right, but the transparent movement in floral design is really interesting, and it's about design. It's not be transparent, like I said earlier, like tell all your stuff. This is about how you design. Sorry, I didn't have my glasses on now either. So we're seeing minimized design. Whose bouquet was this? Meghan Markle, right? The tiny petite bouquet is, there's big debate in the American Institute of Floral Designer crowd about, you know, is the big giant cascading bouquet the big thing, or are we really going to see this influence of the royal wedding on smaller bouquets? I'm not saying you have to change what you're doing if you're selling to florists. Just be aware of this and, you know, ask them or offer choices. There's a designer in Santa Cruz, California named Teresa Sabancaya. She has her own garden that she cuts from, and she also buys from a lot of local farms. She's really playing up this posy thing, and she has a new book coming out next year called the Modern Language of Flower, the Modern Language of Flowers, I think, where she's taking all the Victorian meanings of traditionally were associated with flowers. And researching all the modern flowers that have been bred and introduced since the Victorian era, and looking at their parentage and kind of coming up with her new meaning. So you can see on her little bouquets, she titles it and then has all the flowers with their meaning, and these are gift bouquets, and she's shipping these around the country. This whole idea of negative design space, I think we saw that a lot with the beautiful arrangements yesterday, where there's like anything that can rise above the arrangement. If you have this awareness of veil technique in design, see-through plants, something that has a stem that will lift above the mass arrangement. I'm seeing a lot of application of that. And this really was brought out at the American Institute of Floral Design workshop, where they were talking about veil plants. So Tommy Gilliam talked a lot about this as sort of a move away from the, of course no one's talking about roundy moundy anymore, but the voluptuous, over designed, I guess, bouquet that has, like, you know, the bride can barely hold on to the handle. That's kind of being replaced by more open design. And I just love the work of Jessica Gring. She's a long worked on flower farms. Now she's working at the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market. She designs an arrangement every week for the customers to see new ways of using product at that market. And her business is called Odd Flowers. She's a lot of fun to follow on Instagram. She always has negative space in her design, and it's just really changed my thinking about this. And some would argue, well, that means you're selling fewer flowers. So, of course, this is more of an avant-garde fashion look that maybe will eventually filter into the mainstream. I don't think you're going to see this at the grocery store, but I think in weddings you're going to see more of this open, kind of very few, less foliage, more flowers. And you can follow her on Instagram and see lots of examples of that. And then collections. I think collections is another category that was brought up at the Southern Flower Conference. Jim Martin, who owns Compliment My Shoe, but was an accomplished floral designer, talked about the idea that collections are a way to sell flowers to the millennials. That there's a way to try to represent one idea in a new way. Maybe take apart a big bouquet and present every stem in a bud vase. So, but that could also go back to the curating idea that I talked about. Okay, number 9, multi-seasonal, not single use. This is something you all know. It's very exciting to see, kind of back to the foraging thing, like how can we use everything available to us? How can we use product that is has one look in the spring when it's foliage, one look in the summer when it's a flower, one look in the fall when it's a pod. One of the best gurus on this is Charles Little from Charles Little and Company in Eugene, Oregon. He has definitely taught me to look at things a new way. Now, Charles is also probably graduated from high school the same time I did. He grew up in that dried flower era. He knows this whole idea of if you can't sell it when it's fresh, save it and dry it, because you can probably try selling it a second time when it's dry. So I see that that is something that is multi-use plants is very compelling for just basically trying to sell everything you grow rather than throw it in the compost heap. Here's some more of the products from Charles Little and Company. It's interesting that they have stalls at both the Portland Flower Market and the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market year-round. So they're seeing a demand for dried flowers even in the summer, and it's usually for flower crowns and boutonnieres and floral jewelry. So it's not a lot quantity-wise, but it doesn't really matter because the stuff doesn't die. You can have it on your display and sell it, you know, over the course of a couple months. And then I really love this whole idea of foliage that acts as the color element in your arrangements. You know, anything that's actually more interesting than the flowers around it, like this oak-leaf hydrangea. Okay, I have two bonus presentations, two bonus concepts, but my last one that's on the handout is community, not solitary. And I feel like that's what we're all doing here. As a group, we're coming together and trying to find new ways to rise everybody's boat. And that's really what I'm inspired by and encouraged by. Collaborations are happening everywhere. How many of you were at Kelly Morrison's presentation? Kelly talked a lot about what's happening in this local flower hub, seeing where farmers are coming together to bring product to a hub where florists can also come. It's the market demand is driving it, and none of us can catch up with it, and all of these models are a little bit imperfect, but it's exciting. This is happening in Toronto with the local flower collective, where a group of florists came together and wanted to have farmers bring flower product to them. So there's different points of entry. This is a particular situation, and I'm not an expert on what's happening in Toronto, but I've interviewed a number of these people where the farms are all outside of the city, the florists are all in the city, the florists couldn't get the product, so they created a place, a studio, and begged farmers to bring the product in. So they're just in year one. So check them out, the local flower collective. And Janice, do you want to say anything else about that? Do you know anything else about that?
I don't know too much, but you're correct with that they're coming in from outside.
Yeah, and the florists are making it happen. In some cases, the farmers are making it happen. Pop-up markets are, I've been reading about pop-up markets or pop-up everything for 3 or 4 years, so this isn't new, but what I'm seeing is exciting are these maker markets and in urban settings at night. Anybody involved in the night market? This is in Seattle once a week. The night market is at this big hipster like facility that used to be a warehouse, and now it's filled with restaurants and expensive shops. And they have a courtyard, and they bring in farmers and other specialty food artisans like bread. And so there's a flower farmer on Vashon Island who's bringing her product in and reaching a crowd that would never call a florist, a crowd that are mostly millennial, that are not going to perceive that they could afford a florist, but they're willing to shop from her at this hipster market. I love seeing cross promotions happen. This is one that Alicia Schweedy, who is a floral industry blogger, has partnered with Longfield Gardens to go through their whole catalog of bulbs, pick dahlias that she wants to grow or spring bulbs that she wants to grow, and create collections. So this is a cross promotion where she's coming up with sort of a florist take on basically every bulb that you've ever seen and putting it together. And so I wrote about this for Florist Review. And so now if you go onto Longfield Gardens, you can buy the Flirty Flirt collection of bulbs. And I sort of feel like there's an opportunity there. I don't know what it is, but if there's some way you can partner with a florist to maybe be a guest designer to come onto your farm and curate or, don't say that word, design a bouquet or something using your particular crop that you want to promote, I feel like those opportunities are really exciting. And shared farming, shared resources and co-farming. I know that this is as old as farming is, but I'm seeing some exciting new models. One is Aster Bee Flowers in Essex, Massachusetts. I believe Melissa is a member of ASCFG, and she had more land than she could use, and Essex is outside of Boston. She had some florists who wanted to try their hand at growing, and they did a barter, and she's allowed these farmer florists and florists to come take small portions of her land to grow their flowers in exchange for assisting on her farm. Yes?
That's my farm. That's what I was with my sister. That didn't really work out.
It didn't?
They all lived in Boston, and it was 45 minutes away.
Oh, I'm so bummed.
They kind of flaked, and like, it got really weedy.
So what's she doing now?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I did write about this a year ago, so it's a little dated. Yeah, she did this in 2017, right?
I'm sorry?
She did that in 2017, right?
Right,
Yeah. Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
All right, well, okay, that's no reason not to try it somewhere else. Tell her we miss her and we love her. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 2 bonus themes, and why not? How much more time do I have? 10 minutes? Okay, great. Every time you do a forecast, you have to be a little cutting edge, right? And so please don't be offended by this, but I just wanted to have a little fun. Cannabis Nation, not taboo topic. Okay, are you seeing this at all in your world? In Washington State, in Colorado, and a few other states, of course, cannabis is legal, and now everybody thinks that that's going to be like the gold rush for farming. So what I also am seeing happening in California is that a lot of greenhouse growers are second, third generation. They maybe don't want to, their family, younger kids in the family don't want to keep going with the farm. But there's a lot of demand for greenhouse space in California, and farmers are leasing that space to cannabis growers. So think about this. It's a design element. This is a bouquet designed by Melissa Feedier at a dinner in Washington State with some male cannabis. And the joke is that half the people at the dinner didn't know what it was. Half the people thought it was kind of funny. And the most surprise that we had is she got calls 2 weeks later from people saying, what was that foliage? It lasted longer than anything else. Yeah, and by the way, I'm not even a partaker of cannabis. I did try to inhale once in 1980 in Central Park, and that did not go well. But I was telling a friend of mine about this, and he's the head of horticulture at the Greater Des Moines Botanic Garden, Kelly Norris, and he said, oh, well, if people don't want to grow cannabis, they should grow Dastica cannabina. I'm like, well, what is that? He sends me the link and shows me what it is. It's called false cannabis. So if you're interested in trying new foliage, and he did not swear by its vase life, but I thought it might be worth mentioning to you. It's beautiful, isn't it? Okay, so I was poking around Instagram trying to see if this was really a thing or not. If you search the hashtag cannabis florist, you'll find hundreds of uses of that hashtag. Really. There's an editor in the Bay Area, Joanna Silver, who left Sunset Magazine at the Better Homes and Gardens of the West Coast, and has now become like the lifestyle cannabis DIY grower expert. So she's blogging about this. She's trying to make it mainstream and accessible. Here's some of her Instagram posts. The middle one is an arrangement with the foliage, and she says, I found a new use for my male cannabis plant. On the right, she said, I'm starting a weed delivery service. This is how that works, right? So anyway, you can even buy cannabis candles if you go to Field and Florist in Chicago. So just saying, be aware of it. It's out there, and I don't think the train has left the station on the cannabis thing, so there may be an opportunity there. Who knows? Number 12, I wanted to talk about 2 business options. One that's holding people back and one that can move you forward. The one that's holding people back, I believe, is the hashtag grown not flown, and or local meets local. Those hashtags drive me crazy. I feel they're so limiting. I know that they're used in a really, like from the people's true belief that they're promoting themselves as local, but sustainable also means supporting yourself as a farmer. And so I want to propose shipping for dollars as possibly a new hashtag. How do you grow your business and be true to your brand? There's a way. There's a case study right here, Jessica Hall in the front row. I'm going to show a photo of something you're doing.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
More than ever, I feel like there's an opportunity to sell your excess flowers and foliage, your overproduction, shall we say, outside your market. I did a story about this a year ago in Florist Review. I mentioned both what Jessica is starting at Harmony Harvest Farm with her shipping, and also Gretel and Steve Adams of Sunny Meadows, who have just launched the Columbus Flower Company, and they're gearing up to ship. They sell all over Ohio, but they're gearing up to ship ranunculus nationwide. And they're shipping, and I think Jessica too, you're not shipping to consumers. You're shipping to florists, right?
Correct.
Okay. Primarily.
Yeah.
That's where the demand is.
That is where the demand is.
I'm trying to get the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market to start shipping, because every single day they get a phone call from a florist somewhere in the country wanting to. The florists are following their Instagram feed. They know that it's available. They just want to know how to get it. So it's tricky, and I'm not saying it's easy. Direct to consumer is the biggest cost of shipping. Is that FedEx box and that FedEx charge, as well as figuring out how to do the packaging. And you spent about a year trialing boxes and shipping flowers to friends and saying, what does this look like when it arrived, right?
Oh yeah, lots of research and development and box trials. Lots of things that we thought would work that didn't. But we're still in the thick of shipping this year. This has been our first full season shipping off of our farm. And knock on wood, it's gone really, really well for us.
Great. Great, thank you. I didn't even know you were going to be here, so please talk to Jessica. I mean, this literally could be a whole talk for ASCFG next year. One of the first people to do this were the people at California Organic Flowers, and they've since sold, but I visited this farm when I was working on the 50 Mile Bouquet in Chico, California. Is it Mark Kane? Is that his name? Was he here? Can't remember. It's in the 50 Mile Bouquet. I can't remember his last name. 3-acre certified organic farm in Chico, California. They sold primarily to 3 farmers markets and had a lot more product to sell than those farmers markets could absorb. And they came up with a model this was in 2010 that we wrote about them, of selling their flowers overnight. And the fabulous thing about this farm was that because they were in Chico, California, they could have something to harvest every month of the year out from their farm to ship. Now maybe it was just anemones in January, but I always tell people it's like the anti-FTD. So now that was kind of a novelty. Now there's more and more people getting into it. Even the big farms are getting into it. So Stargazer Barn is actually owned by Sun Valley Growers, the largest commercial cut flower grower in the country. They can't sell direct to the consumer. They can't even sell direct to florists. The wholesalers would have mutiny on them. So now Stargazer has their own consumer-facing brand, or Sun Valley has their own consumer-facing brand called Stargazer. And as you can see, we only sell flowers we grow. Lane DeVries, who owns this farm, or the CEO, also is part of a winery called Stargazer Winery. So now, of course, they're selling wine and flowers, and whenever the wholesalers complain about it, they're like, oh, it's just a gift site. Yes. Oh, 5 minutes. I thought you had a question. I'm almost done. Thank you. Roseberry Farm has been doing this with beautiful David Austin roses, selling direct to florists for at least, I think they're in their 20th year. Beautiful roses, a luxury product to a hungry floral designer who needs those lush garden roses for a wedding, is willing to pay the price because their client is willing to pay the price. Resendez Brothers in San Diego, another grower, big grower who only sells to wholesale. They've created the Proteus store. This is an online consumer-facing site to buy 1 stem of Protea, 1 bunch, a wreath, anything that you want, a bouquet. That's a great product for shipping, by the way. So how do you do it? Well, if you're interested, please look into Cal Flowers. I'm not getting a penny from these guys. I wish they would give me a penny and sponsor Slow Flowers. But Cal Flowers was the California Association of Flower Growers and Shippers. They are the only horticulture organization that ever negotiated a massive discount group rate with FedEx. No, ASCFG can't do it, Slow Flowers can't do it. Like, FedEx is only going to play with one company, or one organization, and it's Cal Flowers. So the membership, it's what is it, about $1,000 a year, Jessica?
I think so.
Yeah, you have to be willing to ship. I mean, you have to do the calculation and see if it's worth it.
Yeah.
But if you're getting 40 to 60% off retail on FedEx, that $1,000 will be covered very quickly. So I'm just throwing that out there. Don't think that grown not flown is bad. It's just there's other options too. Shipping for dollars might be one of them.
Be grown and flown.
Grown and flown. Yeah. Of course, that's what the Colombians are probably saying. So. Anyway, I put a little bit about Slow Flowers and what it is at the end of your handout. We basically, I think I'll just tell you what Slow Flowers is, because my husband thinks it means my flowers grow slowly. So sometimes I have to explain it. It's really, it became a shorthand way for me to describe all the topics I was writing about flowers being local, seasonal, and sustainable, about florists and sustainably minded florists seeking out people like you and wanting to support local flowers in their community for seasonal flowers. So these are sort of some of the three mandates or part of my manifesto. Conscious sourcing, understanding that there is a direct benefit to the farmer and local economies when you buy flowers, so that's very consumer-facing and also florist-facing, and observing and appreciating the cycle of seasons, which really comes out of my background as a gardener. So you can find these practices listed on my website. They're, I believe, also in the handout. Really, I'm trying to help people understand the new way of floristry. And I have 5 channels, and you're welcome to find me at any of those, reading, listening, participating, and attending the Slow Flowers Summit, which is a conference that is happened 2 years in a row, and it's going to be July 1st and 2nd in Minneapolis with the Twin Cities Flower Exchange, which is going to be awesome. Are you passing out buttons? Yay, thank you, Janice. And I have probably 1 or 2 minutes for questions, so I just want to thank you all for hanging in there with me. Anybody have any questions or comments? Corrections? I got a correction from the back room already. Thank you for that. Good. Well, I wish you all a wonderful rest of the conference. I'll be around. Happy to talk to you. Thanks.